after listening to Steve Kerr. My goodness, we've got a lot to talk about because for me, that was I don't know if game-changing is the right way, but thought-adjusting for sure for me because I've always said this is kind of like when players retire from the league. When a player is active, I don't listen to the radio or TV, and I don't read the internet. I don't pay attention to any of that crap. And then they retire, and they go, yeah, we watch everything.
Yeah.
We know everything everybody is saying about us. It's the same thing here. The season's over, so now let's get real. Let's get honest for a second. Yeah, we never got over the punch. We never, ever, ever got over the punch, says Steve Kerr.
I think there was some of that was lost this year for sure. You know, there's no hiding from it. The incident with Draymond and Jordan at the beginning of the year played a role in that. It's hard for that not to impact a team, and so you know we feel like we have a great group of people on the roster, on the coaching staff, in the front office. We have a way of doing things that we're very proud of, but those things were definitely challenged this year. Anytime some trust is lost, then it makes the process much more difficult. And there was some trust lost, and that's as blunt as I can be. So the only way to try to correct course is to continue to communicate with players and coaches, and those relationships have to be built. The bonds have to be built. I think that's a major focus for us this offseason is we have to get back to what has made us really successful, which is a really trusting environment and a group that relies on one another and makes each other better.
Shout out to our friend Ann Killian, who actually asked the question about the Warrior culture, which seemed like it had taken a hit, and she's spot on. It had, and that's where Steve took the answer, which I thought is even more fascinating. That's an even more fascinating answer than if Ann had said, hey, did you ever get over it? Because that's like directed. She just said, hey, what about the culture? And Steve went to the punch. The incident, as they're now calling it.
Well, isn't that the essence of where the culture went awry?
Yes.
Because Jordan Poole, and we referred to Logan Murdoch's article in The Ringer earlier in our pre-show, and he wrote a great article, and Jordan Poole talked about how Draymond was a big brother. And then after the punch, it's like, oh, this is just business. So you go from, that's my big brother, to it's just business. That's a long way to go from, the guy's my mentor to now he's my coworker.
Well, I mean, take a look at these two seasons, okay? Well, the roster that they ended up with in the playoffs this year, forget the whole story of how they got here. The roster that they ended up with in the playoffs is not that different than the roster they ended up with last year in the postseason. So what was different? And that's why I come out of this and go, gosh, maybe they are just going to bring everybody back for two reasons. They do believe that this group of players can win a championship because 11 months ago they did. So why did they not play as well this year? Well, there's your answer. The culture this year was different. Not the X's and O's, not the players. We didn't see this great denigration of the players, even though everyone wants to say, oh, the old guys are getting older. All three of them, their stats are better this year. All of them.
Wow.
All of them.
3 of 19's on the phone.
Terrible, terrible series. Yes. He was awful, especially in the last game. It's the worst game I can ever remember him playing in a big moment in his career.
You can regular season stats me all you want, but in the playoffs, Klay Thompson, in the Lakers series, Klay Thompson was bad.
Yeah.
He had one good game and 5 bad games.
Agreed.
So if you're counting on him to be your second best player, or at least your third best player, he was awful.
That's a dicey scenario to make decisions on decade-long players and their future based on 5 games. That's a dicey deal, in my opinion.
What would Bill Walsh do, though, would be my counter. Bill Walsh
would have gotten rid of all 3 of them 2 years ago.
Right. But, I mean, you get to a point where the disintegration of skills, the erosion of skills is happening. So whether or not you want to ink them for 3 more years and then wake up like Brian Sabian and realize, oh, heck, these guys were done 3 years ago and I got them for 3 more years after this, or if you want to go the Bill Walsh or somewhere in between, that to me is the interesting question as we move forward in the offseason.
Well, all of this brings up to me are 2 very clear questions. The whole offseason to me just got boiled down to 2 questions, okay? And I think this is where we can really have an interesting conversation. And you're all welcome to totally eavesdrop and add yourself into it. Okay? 888-957-9570, Comcast Business Text Line. Scream it on Twitch and YouTube, whatever you want to do. These are the 2 questions. Question number 1, what is Jordan Poole's trade value? Question number 2, can Jordan Poole and Draymond Green coexist? Now, you have to answer potentially only one of them, but they are attached. The only way this becomes awful for the Warriors, if the answer is his trade value is not what we want it to be, it's not good, and no, they cannot coexist. That's where you end up in a bad spot, a Wiseman-type deal, where you got to give somebody away for nothing, and I don't think the Warriors want to do that.
No, they won't do that.
If they end up with some sort of a great offer, I think that that's on the table. But if they also, in turn, believe that this is still salvageable as far as Draymond and Jordan as teammates, if an offseason away and some perspective and some work in the offseason, as Steve just pointed to, if that can recover their culture back to where it was, it seems to me that they believe, either they believe this is still the same championship group from 11 months ago, or, and this is the scarier part, they don't have any choice. They don't have any choice because what move is there to make?
Well, I think that to me is the more likely scenario. They don't have any choice unless Draymond opts out. And based on Draymond's words immediately after the game, he still wants to be here. I want to retire with the people who I came in with. Okay, Draymond, if that's the case, what do, Joe Lacob, about Draymond Green? Because he's making $27.6 next year, and he wants to go out with the guys he came in with, which means you got to give him at least 2 more years because that's what Steph is under. So you're going to give Draymond what for 2 more years or 3 more years? Are you going to give Draymond 3 and 75?
Listen,
3 and 90 like some people have put out there?
I think.
No, thank you.
Well, see, I think they say thank you.
We'll see if Joe Lacob says thank you when he's looking at a $400 million tab next year for a team that won 44 games.
I don't think this is new for them. I think they're well aware that this is coming. I think the reporting that Anthony Slater and Shams did, which Slates, he talked about on a morning show with Bonte and Joe today. Listen to that on my run this morning. So thanks, guys, for that. And Slater said that this was reporting that they've been working on for 2 months. This is not a brand new topic. Everybody knows that Draymond's got an opt-out. And the very, very clear takeaway from everybody at a high level in the organization is that they want Draymond to stay. And that story, it dropped 7 minutes after the final buzzer, that they're going to immediately start working on an extension. Not an opt-in, an extension.
Right.
I don't think you say that unless there's been conversations, I'm sure, with Clutch. Hey, where you at? This is where we're at. And that doesn't come out unless the 2 sides are probably comfortable with what the other side is saying right now. That's my read on it.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you and many others are welcome to think that that's a horrible move.
Well, it depends. Depends on if you want to win the championship
I think that's what they're going to do. Well, here, put it this way.
He opts in, or he opts out, and then they tear up the 27.6, and they say, we're going to give you 3 and 75.
Okay.
So we're going to give you 28, and then 22, and then 25, or however you want to structure it. Doesn't even matter to me. It's Joe Lacob's money. Fine, whatever. So Jordan Poole and Draymond Green are going to play together for 3 more years. That is the part of it that I'm not buying. And I'm not buying that Draymond is going to sign on, and Jordan Poole is going to be thrilled to play alongside Sir Punch-a-Lot after having there's been nothing since the punch to now that has made the relationship better. It's only gotten worse.
This is the entire offseason, what you're talking about right now. Can you figure that out or not? And if the answer is no, then you better hope that you get him out on the trade market and like what you hear there. And that's what I'm saying. If you get bad answers in those two spots, the Warriors are in trouble. If your assessment, Draymond and Jordan cannot coexist, and then the next is said, okay, well, let's see what's on the trade market. And Toronto's like, we'll give you Otto Porter and a second-round draft pick for him. Okay?
It's a no.
Yeah. That's just, obviously, that doesn't even work. But
I hope you all follow Alan Stiles on Twitter because he's been putting out a bunch of great trade opportunities. I think one today was Nurkic and Jeremy Grant from Portland in exchange for Kuminga, Moody, and Poole. So you bring in two grown men in place of three younger players. Because honestly, for me, Mark, if you are going to give Draymond a 3-year extension, and let's just assume then that they look at Clay and they say, all right, Clay, you're getting 43.2 next year. We're going to give you 2 and 50 for the final 2 years that Steph is here. We're going to give you 25 and 25 just as a way to say, we want you and thank you. We recognize you're not the same Clay, but you kind of owe us, Clay, for what we did for you when you were hurt. Will you take 2 and 50? And I think he would have to swallow hard, but he would say yes. If you're going to keep Steph, Clay, and Dre together for 3 more years, then to me, you have no reason to keep Kuminga or Poole because neither one of them is going to be good enough in the next 3 years to really help you. Now,
really?
Poole might be different.
I mean, Poole was on a championship team last year.
But he was unplayable when you needed games 5 and 6 against Boston. He barely played. This year, he was unplayable.
Listen. His playoffs 2 years in a row have been lesser than his regular season, and yes, they need to figure that out. However, I'm going to keep going to this. We got to be careful about deciding who people are, and I know this is sports media 2023. Stephen A. Smith, Julius Randle needs to be shipped to Mars because he had a bad game at the wrong time. We got to be careful about painting with a brush that says this player is now defined by that night. Come on. Poole had his playoffs last year were not great. They were not horrible. They were way worse this year. And I think we're sitting here documenting what was different this year versus last year. They never got on track. But, I don't know if we can now just decide things like Clay is declining and dead and Jordan Poole can't play in the playoffs.
Clay is declining. He's not dead. And Jordan Poole can't play on this team in the playoffs.
How do we even know that Clay is declining? Let's go with that for a second. Based on what?
Why did he play so badly against the Lakers?
He had a bad week.
I mean,
I don't know.
Why?
Shooters go in bad streaks.
Yeah, but that was worse than, and you said it during the changeover, that was the worst Clay Thompson stretch that you've ever seen. He's coming off 2.
Worst game. Worst game. I mean, we've seen him have bad stretches.
He had a 6-game series. 1 game he was good. 5 games he was not good.
Yeah,
including a ferocious Game 6 when you needed something from somebody.
Right, but that's the way it works. But that's the way it works.
He shot you out of that game early and often.
All right, so here's my collection now of NBA players who are not allowed to be good anymore. Joel Embiid, James Harden, Giannis, Klay Thompson. Who else? Who else had a bad last game this year?
Well,
let's hear it. They're all
Giannis
done.
is the MVP.
They're all done. He's not the MVP.
But he's been MVP twice. Joel Embiid was the MVP. James Harden's an interesting question because James Harden's not the same player that he was.
Oh,
Julius Randle.
Thank you, Grandy. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant.
Phoenix is broken.
Can't play anymore.
Kevin Durant's not the same player he was.
Got to get rid of him.
Is Kevin Durant the same player that he was?
Doesn't seem like it.
No,
but he's
not.
But he's also not being asked to do the same thing.
Klay Thompson is coming off of 2 catastrophic career-ending injuries, and we are expecting him to be the same Klay that he was.
I mean, in February, we sat here and said we're amazed that we're even seeing this.
Right.
We thought we'd never see it again.
February's not May, though, unfortunately.
But again, it's a week. It's a week.
It's a bad week.
It was a terrible week.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson has had really bad stretches before. We have seen this before.
Remember Game 6 Klay? What a fun notion that was.
What does that mean now, by the way? When you say Game 6 Klay, what's the first thing that pops to your mind?
What it means, Mark, is I did a statistical deep dive on Game 6 Klay, and you know what Game 6 Klay is? He's Klay Thompson. If you look at all of his Game 6s through his career, the numbers match up almost identically with who he is as a player. So we all mythologize.
He had a pretty big one.
He had a big one.
He had a really big one.
But other than that, he's had more games like he did the other night than he has had games we all worship.
You remember the show that day. I said, I don't need whatever Game 6 Clay is. I need regular Clay. How about regular Clay? And we did not get regular Clay.
Right. To me, if you're going to bring back Steph, Clay, and Dre together, which means Dre gets an extension of some sort, then for me, you don't bring back Jordan Poole. And if you don't bring back Jordan Poole, you might as well trade Jonathan Kuminga because you don't believe in Jonathan Kuminga right now.
Well, again, but that's today, and which is now irrelevant whether you believe in him in May because you don't have any more basketball games in May.
How about next May?
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. Obviously, a lot happens for a young player who's 20, 21 years old.
Yeah, 20.
From the beginning of one year to the next. Like he was a month ago, something that we had never seen him do before. Could he take another step next year? I don't think that's irrational at all. Again, I'm not sitting here. I'm still piecing this apart in my head. I'm not sitting here advocating just run it back. I'm bringing up that after listening to Steve Kerr, I now think it's possible.
Yeah.
Whether because they want to do that or because they feel like they've got no other choice. But here's what we can whittle this all down to for you at 888-957-9570. Let's start here. You want Jordan Poole on this team or not? Do you want Jordan Poole on this team or not?
Are you asking me or are you asking 888-957-9570?
I'm asking everybody.
I think you know my answer.
First call. Let's go to Dan in San Francisco, who is sitting about 5 feet from me.
Hey, how you doing, Mark? Am I on?
Good to have you, Dan.
First time, long time.
Right here in the back.
Yeah. Geez, Mark, your voice sounds much deeper on the radio than it does when I'm sitting across from you 4 hours
all day.
He's a horse. Mark, wow, you're asking me about Jordan Poole. No, I don't want Jordan Poole on the team. The lack of maturity he showed and the way he kind of pouted his way through the season. And I understand that Draymond punched him, and Draymond should have been punished. And that Dibs guy said it way back in the beginning, and I couldn't agree with him more.
All right, let us jump in here, Dan. Thanks for calling. Really appreciate that.
Wow.
Well, your answer is...
felt like I was at work again.
I mean, your answer is stronger than mine because, unfortunately...
Are you on the fence?
I can't... It's not that I'm on the fence, but I can't give that a straight yes or no because I would advocate trading him if you get a good trade, but I'm not trading him just for
5
giggles.
seconds. For 5 seconds.
Like, that was fun. Yay. Like, I'm not doing that. I don't disbelieve in Jordan to that level. The disbelief that this team showed in James Wiseman a few months ago, I'm not there.
No, that was different because he earned that disbelief. Jordan Poole averaged 20 points a game in the association, and he played all 82. So I don't think that you can say that his trade value has plummeted. Now, has his trade value gone down a tick based on his postseason? Yeah, I think you could argue that. But he's still a player who played every single night in the association, which is rare, as we know, and he averaged 20 a game. That is a tradable asset.
Well, not only is that a tradable asset, let's back up because I know that half the calls today are going to be like, no, don't trade Jordan. You know who you should trade is Klay Thompson. Or we got to let this cancer Draymond Green go. You're allowed to have that take. I'm not going to put an opinion in your brain. Your brain is yours. So have that take. But here's my answer. They're not doing it.
No.
They've already told you about 13 different ways in the last week that they love themselves some big three. They're not going anywhere. He just was asked a half hour ago about Draymond Green, and he gave the same answer that he often gives. Well, see, around here, we like championships, so we like Draymond Green. Draymond's not going anywhere, and for those of you who are fed up with him and you're tired of the act, here's also an unarguable truth. He's irreplaceable. And if he's gone from this roster right now, the opt-out crew, those of you who are out there in the opt-out crew, he opts out and leaves, you go from the 6th seed or whatever, you are out. You are out of the playoffs. That is non-starter in terms of this team being in a championship conversation next year if you just remove Draymond Green from the team, period. So they're not doing that, and they're not trading Klay Thompson at $43 million.
Point two.
They have said repeatedly, big three. We love some big three. We still think there's a lot of meat on that bone, all of those things. So the only possibilities here are you trade young people or you trade no people. Those are the possibilities. That's what I took from the last hour.
If you trade no people, which means you bring everyone back except for Dante, who I believe will opt out.
Yeah,
I don't think he's opting in for 4.7.
There'll be little changes.
He's the only one who would leave then. If Draymond opts in or you extend Draymond Green, so you're running it back. Kuminga's got a team option. They pick that up. And you've got a team option on Moody. You pick that up. So you come back with everybody intact, except you need to replace Dante DiVincenzo, and I also believe JaMychal Green is gone. Iguodala, I don't know how you replace him in street clothes.
There's some great street clothes, by the way. Very colorful there at the end. Did you see that?
Nobody asked Steve about that. Could you have benefited by maybe having a guy who actually plays in that roster spot?
I don't know. I mean, how many people are going down to that level of the bench? You know what I mean?
I know one guy.
Who?
Me. I'm going down to that level of the bench. Over 82 games.
Over 82 games.
You could have had a guy, and maybe you find something.
That's
whatever.
Fair.
It's neither here nor there. And so you're going to run it back. You're going to run it back with everybody except for Dante.
Maybe.
You are not winning a championship with that.
I don't know why not. You just did 11 months ago.
Because 11 months from now will be 2 years removed from that.
Well, that's fair. But again, I do think this is important because there's a little bit of a devil's advocate play there when I say that. I'm not sitting here yet advocating that they make no changes. It was the first thing I tweeted when the Lakers game ended was time for some changes. But after listening to Steve Kerr, I'm mindful of two things. A, they may not want to, and B, it's quite possible they can't. And
see, that I don't believe.
Well,
they absolutely can.
How? By
trading Kuminga, Poole, and or Moody.
And if you don't like what the return is on that, you don't do it. That's my point. That deal may not sound good when you hear who's on the other end. Jordan Poole's value went down in the last month. There's no two ways about it. And maybe even over the last year. Because even though he was
20 a game
and
he played every night
and was the victim in training camp, however, there's not a one of us who during the regular season didn't start to go, what the hell's going on here? Why did Draymond punch him? Why is he walking off the floor? Why is Steph throwing his mouthpiece? Why is Clay throwing his hands up in the air? And why am I so angry every time Jordan drives to the hole? We've all felt it. He has had a rough year.
We watch it more closely than other markets and other teams.
Not other GMs.
Sure. Well,
not other GMs.
Yeah, I don't think that they look at all of the nonverbal stuff and all of everything that falls out.
You don't think on an asset like that they wouldn't make some calls and be like, "What's going on over there?"
For sure, but I don't think that the answer that they get back is that it's all Jordan's fault. They all saw what happened with Draymond Green when Draymond punched him in the face.
Yeah.
So and there's a certain allure to the change of scenery guy. And that's what Detroit was thinking with James Wiseman. Maybe. If we can get him in and we give him minutes, we can make him something.
That's a futures play, and you're giving nothing up. Jordan Poole would require a return, and whether you think Jordan is great or not, as a GM, you'd be smart to, if the Warriors call or you call them, you're like, look, it's been a rough year for your boy Jordan over there. I mean, you're going to try to play the value down.
Sure.
And there are a number of things you can say in that conversation.
But I think the Warriors would be in the market for an expiring contract kind of player. And I don't know who that player is. I haven't combed all the contracts of all the teams. But
AJ
Anunoby. If you're looking for a short-term, because this Warrior team is looking for a short-term fix. If they make a move like that, they're not looking to get another young player who they can develop. They're looking for a right now, ready-made, 30-year-old grown man.